You're listening to Street Life, a podcast about street photography with John ST and Mark Davidson.
You're listening to Street Life. I'm Mark Davidson, street photographer from Melbourne, Australia, and with me, as always, a man who doesn't like hot chips, but he does like hot bangers. He's Sydney's greatest living street photographer, Mr. John ST. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, Mark. I love back screen bangers.
Do you?
They always look better on the back of the screen than they do when I put them on the screen. They can be the crap, but on the screen on the back of my camera, bangers all day long.
All day long.
How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, man. I just got back from an exhibition. Just walked in the door, which is good. So Australian Society of Street Photographers just put on Shot in the Heart of Australia, which is good. So on now, if people want to go and check it out at the Victorian Artists Society, it's good work.
Are you exhibiting this time, Mark? Or?
No, not this year. Not this year. No, I haven't put in this year. So, but there are plenty of others. I think there's about 30 plus photographers there, so it's well worth checking out.
Oh, that's fabulous. Are you giving someone else a crack this year? Yeah, you're letting them have an opportunity
Exactly.
to exhibit.
Give them some more space.
Did they knock back your invoice for $1,000 to do?
They didn't accept the bribe, sort of the brown paper bag action. But no. I done the last couple of years, but yeah, I thought I'd sit this one out. But some really good work. Gavin Labotte. He did this series down at the beach in the water. It was really good. And my mate Tommy Bacchus has done some amazing portraiture. So, yeah, go check it out.
Gavin hasn't been photographing for very long either, but he's got a great eye for composition and detail and stuff. He's like, he does everything.
Very good.
He does everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What about yourself,
great.
Matt? I heard you got a little delivery in the mail this week.
I did. I got Trent Park's monument delivered. Yeah.
I ordered
Fabulous.
that as well. It hasn't arrived yet, though. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
Well, I ordered mine in December last year and I only just got it now.
Are you kidding?
No, it was pre-order. It was a pre-order and it got delayed a little bit because Trent was decided he wanted to change some images, apparently. So, yeah.
I spoke to a guy yesterday. He's ordered two. He's opened one and he's left one in the plastic for future keeping, just investment.
It's stunning, mate. It's so good.
Yeah,
and now that I'm living in Sydney, I'm looking at his images and I'm thinking, I photographed there and I photographed there. Of course, mine don't look anything like Trent's.
Oh, come on, mate. Come on. I'm sure they do.
No.
You are Sydney's greatest living street photographer, so surely some of them are.
That's a title that you've given me, Mark, and now I get shit for that. Yeah.
I do work in talk radio, so I'm prone to exaggeration.
Yeah,
John,
I know. Overselling everything as usual, Mark. You bloody stooge. Anyway, yeah.
And I saw you pop up on YouTube this week. What was going on? Do a bit of a walkie-talkie with Human.
Yes, it's coffee and cameras, not walkie-talkie.
Oh, sorry.
Don't be stealing somebody else's title.
Paulie B, yes. He's the goat of
It's coffee and cameras. Thank you.
It was very good. Well done. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It was a lovely little chat.
Yeah.
Where can people find
that? On YouTube under Human Katosi.
Okay.
Yeah. That's Human, not human.
Houman.
Yeah. Human.
That was a good chat. Well done. Well done for doing that.
Yeah, but I've got a face for radio and a voice for print, really, haven't I?
So that was our guest, just having a bit of a chuckle there.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it was difficult being on the other side of the camera, but, I gave my wisdom and knowledge to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, for all the kids out there.
Sermon on the Mount kind of stuff. It was good. No, well done.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a chat. It was nice.
Well,
nice, I got to stroke a few dogs on the street. It was good.
Fabulous. Well, we've kept our guest waiting way too long, John. So why don't you go ahead and do the honours?
Oh, we've got a guest.
Yes.
Oh, have we? Oh, it's great. Yes, we've got a wonderful guest today. We've got the wonderful Phil Penman. Phil Penman is a British-born, New York-based photographer who has been documenting the ever-changing scene of New York City streets for over 25 years. He is known for his atmospheric black and white photographs of the city capturing its energy and diversity. Phil has worked with a range of clients, including People magazine, the Daily Telegraph, and the Independent. No Sun. That was a bit of a gag. Sorry. He has also exhibited his work in galleries around the world, including the Leica Gallery in New York, Tokyo, and also in Sydney, Australia. In addition to his street photography, Phil has worked as an editorial and portrait photographer. He has been featured in numerous publications and has won several awards for his work, including the Leica Oscar Barnick Award and the Sony World Photography Award. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Phil Penman, the Street Life Podcast. Thanks for joining us, Phil.
Hey guys, Mark, can you translate that for me?
Oh, mate, I got nothing. I don't know what he said.
No, yeah, totally lost me there, mate. But yeah,
Geordie's
English,
former
please.
yeah.
Geordies, yeah.
Yeah. Cheers for having me on, guys.
Phil,
Good to meet you.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Your street work is just absolutely breathtaking. And now I believe one of your first jobs in photography was working for an agency as well as a paparazzo, where you rode your bike around New York City on the trail of celebrities. Imagine that was pretty grueling job. So how was that as an introduction to life as a working photographer?
I started before that. I started legitimately. I was like news photographer. I actually had a reputable job in England. I was like Microsoft's, shooter to the directors, and then I got my first gig over here in Los Angeles working for a celebrity agency. And yeah, it's absolutely just got my ass handed to me every single day by my bosses, basically threatening to fire me because I was just absolutely hopeless at it until I got my shit together. But it's the fastest paced job that you'll ever come across. It's absolutely grueling. Yeah.
Wow.
So did that for about 15 years. It was like a bit of an educational because you had to learn a whole new skill set. You're less of a photographer and more of a private investigator. So, if you saw that van down the end of the road with a dark tinted window, that was probably me. Camped out. One of the guys I know actually had a sneaky technique. He had a bolstered arm connected to the horn on his car. So he'd sit in the back and down quiet streets. You'd hear a horn and he'd know that they would turn around to listen to where the horn had come from.
Oh, no.
While he's shooting. Pretty clever.
Cheeky.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
yeah. So I used to travel all over the world doing that. It was a huge market. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was actually considered like the golden years of celebrity photography was when I was doing it. And we would, we in your 20s and you're off to the Caribbean every weekend, staying in 5-star hotels, but getting to watch other people have fun, but not have any fun yourself because you're in a hotel room with a 2-inch sliver between two curtains with a 1600mm lens pointed at some beach. So yeah, fun times.
Wow. And what was the working like with other people? Was there a huge amount of competition, like fighting each other to get the shot, or was there a bit of camaraderie and teamwork, or because everything's about getting the shot first and getting it to the editor, isn't it?
It's really weird actually, because when I did it, I absolutely hated it, and the art is like different types of celebrity photography. You had the guys with like the short lens flash doing the red carpets, the guys who would do like the jump in front of people in the street, very much like some of the street photography today, where you very up close and personal, just walking down the road with your kids, boom, get them. There were those guys, and then there were the guys who the big money stuff was nobody even knew you were there. No one even knew the picture had happened until they saw it in the publication, which was, those were your $500,000, $1 million sales. I tended to be more on that end of things. I never really wanted, the company I worked for, they didn't want us being seen. They didn't want us being known because we wanted the big money stuff. As far as pace, to put it the way that I used to work, I had like a little pocket PC. You'd be chasing a car on a bicycle. You got on one picture and you're editing while you're chasing. So while you're at the red lights in New York, you're stuck at a red light. You quickly whip out your pocket PC. You're editing like, I think it was Fojo, it was called. Editing your picture, right? You'd rush, chase for another 10 lights, car would stop, quick, carry on editing, and you'd hit transmit while you're riding. So everyone else is in their cars. And then you get to the location and be like, you've already sold your picture before they've even taken the next one.
It's incredible.
Wow.
Wow.
You remember when Heath Ledger died? Just to give you an idea. So we had a phone call that he passed. We'd show up at the house. There's about 10 guys waiting there. All of a sudden, there's like 100 people there. You got every single crew, and everyone's on deadline. It's at like 7:00 in the evening. First picture wins, right? That's the one that's going to make all the money. So literally, as the gurney comes out, the truck's there. Everyone's snapping away. Take one picture. Take the card out, put it in my pocket PC, and I'm stood there just editing while 100 people around you are taking pictures. Transmit, gone. The picture was sold before it was in the back of the coroner's truck.
Jeez.
Wow.
So we literally, it was that fast, but you always had to think, like, I'm willing to sacrifice getting those other pictures for the gamble that it's first one in. So that's, yeah, you had to be lightning quick.
What's funny, I was just reading this book about Ouija, and he sort of, worked through the night and was very solo in his approach, and as you say, would investigate these. He obviously shoot crime scenes. You're doing celebrities, but he would rush to
before they happened.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
He was there before they happened.
I know.
A master.
But it sounds like there's sort of crossover there. You're very much investigating, where to go next and be there first on the scene and get the picture. And if you're not there first, it might cost you thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Well, we had that kind of stuff, and then we also had like the investigative stuff. So like the big stories. A lot of the time you'd be working with a newspaper, and only the editor, yourself, and the reporter would know, because you're breaking, world exclusives. I'll give you an example. Like I did one. There was a woman down in San Diego who was selling babies. She had the same 2 babies that she was selling to couples all around the world, and we got the tip off because a British couple had tipped off the Sun, and I do work for them.
Oh, do you? Oh, right. I was wondering about that. You did?
I did. Yeah. Back when News of the World was like the biggest paper in the world, I used to work for them. And they would get the big stories. So
yeah, they would.
We had a tip off that there was this woman was selling babies. We went down there. FBI were on it as well. Like they were at the house, saw nothing, came back 2 weeks later. When I say you buy the house, you're up on a hill with a pair of binoculars looking at a gate, right? 2 weeks later, I see this minivan pull out. One woman driving it, so I'm like, right, I'll tail it anyway, see what's going to happen, because we haven't seen anything at this point. Literally driving in the middle of the desert for 100 miles. There's just 3 cars on the road, her car, my car, and another car. And I'd pass her car every now and then I'd back off and let her overtake me, because I'm just like, fucking, we got to be going somewhere. And all of a sudden, like 2 hours into this drive, this woman and this kid pop up on the back seat, and I can see it in a tinted window. And it was this woman, the woman that was selling the kids. And she literally, I got like 2 frames of her when she went to a lawyer's office.
Wow.
I got 2 frames of her after a like 4-hour car chase being 3 cars in the desert. And you'd have stuff like that. I'd get flown down to Brazil. My favorite down there was tracking down some guy who'd killed a girl in Ireland, and you've got to try and find the guy and then get him to talk to you. And the only reason he's in Brazil is because there's no extradition from Brazil, right? So we get stuff like that, pedophile priests.
Wow.
God, that must have been endless.
And it was like, I did that for 15 years, and after having been held at gunpoint God knows how many times by the police and all kinds of weird stuff. I've been put up against the wall by 20 Secret Service officers.
What? In the States?
Oh yeah. No, years ago when we were doing Bush at the Waldorf, Brad and Angelina were staying there, and we couldn't work on them. Like the guy Billy, who was their bodyguard, he said, just for God's sake, don't pull out a camera anywhere near the hotel because they'll just shoot you. He said they're like hankering to shoot someone. So I'm like, all right, well, we won't do that. About a week goes by, and we're slowly getting a little bit closer to the gates, and all of a sudden, every time there's a convoy going, we're waiting for Brad and Angelina, and the Secret Service guy comes up to me and he's like, right, what are you doing? Every time there's a convoy gone through, you're on your phone, looking at writing something down. I'm like, well, if you want to have a look, mate, I'm applying for a mortgage. You could probably even tell me if I'm going to get it or not.
Yes, exactly.
And he's like, we don't need this shit. And I'm like, you think we don't need this shit? We've lost 2 weeks of worth of work because of you. And he's like, right. So me and my friend, we walk down the street, and all of a sudden 20 of them just come and just slam us against the wall.
Oh, God.
And they let me go. But my friend James, they said, right, 10-block radius, ban.
Oh.
An hour later, I see James hiding underneath scaffolding. I walk up to him, I'm like, mate, what are you doing? Like, leave. and I turn around and there's like a guy walking with a bag with a sawn off towards us. There's all of a sudden there's other guys with like mics in their ear, plain clothes, and I'm like, yeah, mate, might want to leave. Guy with a sawn off coming walking towards you right now.
Jeez. Oh
So,
my God.
yeah. Anyway, 15 years of that, and I figure, right, I probably should just quit.
Yeah, that must have drained you a lot. And how did that sort of work sit with your moral compass, Phil? Was it difficult, or did you not? Or was it just a job and you just got on with it?
It was dependent on the job. So, like the pedophile priests, the women selling babies, killers, all that. I had no problem with that. You're getting the story out there. The celebrity stuff was very weird because at first it's like, until you do it and you realize that half of it was set up.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time they're in on it.
Yeah.
So, I remember we were doing, I can't name names, but we were doing a well-known celebrity in California, and the information was just too good. It's like, right, we're going to be here at this time. And I'm like, look, it's either his like publicist or somebody. And it was actually the girlfriend was the one giving the information.
Oh, yes.
And this was an A-list celeb. And I'm like, wow. And then it's like this awakening moment that like, yeah, everyone else is in on it, Phil, and you're not.
It's all
a game. The thing that would annoy me was when they'd start bringing the kids into it.
Yeah.
Like, we photograph us with our kids, or they'd adopt kids for the sake of, because someone else had adopted a kid, they'd adopt a kid. And it became like a thing. And then it's like, this is just crazy.
Yeah.
Big competition.
Yeah. It was just weird. It's all about attention and just keeping yourself in the magazines and keeping yourself out there. So, yeah, I mentally cracked in the end. I had to get out of it.
Well, I know you don't work in that field now, but I imagine in 2023, it's probably a lot different, isn't it, to how you were, chasing celebrities back then? I don't know if the industry's changed. You probably have a bit of a read on it now, but yeah, as you say, that's but everyone's got a smartphone now. It probably wasn't as prevalent back then, 15 years ago. So it's probably a little bit of a different game, would you say?
Very. Celebrities, they have so much power.
Yeah.
That a lot of the big stories never come out, and they never did. But all of that stuff was squashed by lawyers because the celebrities are bigger than most of the media companies. So, back when I started, the companies were still pretty big, but now a law firm could just take out your media company.
Yeah.
So they won't risk putting out the story. They'd rather just squash it than get taken out.
Yeah.
Also, the advent of Instagram, celebrities, once you put your picture up on Instagram, publications can just take it straight from that. Also, you have a lot of celebrities control their own media where, I have friends of mine who are personal photographers for big celebrities, and the pictures will go out on the wires as if they were candid, but they're actually set up, and the celebrity's getting 70-80% of the money. So when you look in the magazine, you think, oh my God, such and such is with, and then you're unaware that they're all in on it, and they're actually getting paid from that as well.
Good racket.
It's smart. It's very smart. It's like control your own media, your own press.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds you were there for the glory years, Phil, and you managed to benefit out long term anyway. But Phil, I just want to ask you. So you were paparazzi. Look, I went and saw your exhibition at the Leica store in Sydney, and I got to listen to you talk, and I learned so much more.
Sorry about
that. No, I got told I was like a politician's lackey because I was like nodding at everything he was saying. I was like, yeah, what Phil was saying. But I got to learn so much about you. You weren't just, I'd heard that you were a paparazzi photographer that turned into a street photographer, but you were so much more than that, listening about your story. So how did you go from being a paparazzi photographer to street? How did you make that transition? And also, what other work have you done? Because I saw you work on New York. We'll talk about that in 9/11 as well, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Well, I'd always been a photographer. I started when I was 15 in the darkroom, black and white film. It's funny because people said, "Oh, have you ever thought of doing film?" And I'm like, "Well, that's where I started 30 years ago. I've been there, I've done it, and it's now 10 times more expensive." So no, digital was quite nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd rather not sell my kidneys every time I want to buy rolls of film. So I've always done that. I've shot landscape. When we were doing news, you're doing 8 different jobs a day, and every job is different. You had to be able to shoot everything. The celebrity thing only came about because I wanted to be in the US so badly. I really wanted to got this opportunity to work for this agency, doing news, doing portraiture, but their bread and butter was the celebrity stuff. So I just had to learn it. Otherwise, it was leave the country and go back to England, which is not really what I wanted to do. So I made it work. I kind of got a little bit disgruntled with it all. Realized that I was out on the street all day, every day, and I needed to get my head back in it. So a buddy of mine, one of the paps that I used to work with, sold me an M7. Started shooting tranny, neg, and then basically I would go around the streets looking for impromptu street moments, because you're at you got to remember, you're on a bicycle 12 hours a day just looking at every single human being on the street, and you just see a lot of stuff that most people don't get to see. So I took advantage of it. It was good for me because it kept me shooting, and then 2015 I just quit the celebrity stuff altogether and just said, right, I'm just going to focus purely on taking pictures for myself, develop my craft, try to rebrand myself. And I got a job working as a salesperson for a cycling company, as a kind of a backup, keep the money coming in, because obviously street photography is so lucrative and they're all millionaires.
Oh yes, yeah.
So,
pays so well.
And help the pays so well. The healthcare plans are amazing.
Pension, everything.
So yeah, pension, and stock. If you're in stock, you're a billionaire pretty much at this point. So actually, I was selling Leica, cycling clothing to people, and just did that while I was rebranding myself and going full black and white, full steam machine everywhere kind of pictures.
Well, I think it's important for people to hear that, though, Phil. That you were earning good money as a paparazzi photographer. You decide to make a career change, and people automatically think, well, we know Phil Penman and his great street work now. But there is a transition to that point. You just didn't go, well, paparazzi, like an ambassador.
Overnight success, mate. Total overnight success. 27 years later. It's you could, in every job you do things that you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
In everything.
Absolutely.
And that great Joe Rogan speech where he goes on about just grinding away until you can go and do what you want to do. If you're just doing that little bit every day, trying to reach that goal. And I think, to say you want to just quit everything and be a street photographer, I appreciate how much hard work went into getting to this point, but I also appreciate how rare it is that you can make it, and you can make a living doing this is so few and far between.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, touching on that, what advice would you give to people, starting out in photography now, and they're thinking, I want to make a living from photography? I mean, it's pretty hard, as you've just sort of hinted at. What would be your advice to them?
Go start learning about marketing. Like, the photography is one thing. Okay, you've got to learn, hone your craft. You've got to develop your style. Don't try copying other people, because at the end of the day, you've got to show who you are, right? It's if you're just copying something that already exists, then you're just a clone of something else. So you've got to develop your own style, which will take 10, 20 years. I hate to say it. You're not going to walk into this and 2 years later and start making tons of money. But then also you've got to learn about all the other sides of the business. So, the marketing side, the business side, you've got to know all of this. For me, it was like I started watching all these marketing guys, Gary Vee, Seth Godin, learning from them. You don't go to a photographer and ask them about marketing. You go to a guy that does marketing, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that was a huge turning point for me. It was like, the old graph of it. Everyone's kind of fighting for the middle ground. Everyone's in that same place. Whereas for me, it was like, well, I'm going to stay well away from there, and I'm going to go purely black and white. I got in with Leica, and you start aiming for that, like that niche on the corners, on the edges. where there's less people fighting for that, and it worked well for me.
Well, you've built up an incredible body of work in black and white around New York City, and do you actually see New York in black and white? Because it's astonishing images that you've taken on the streets there.
Yeah, I prefer it. It's not that I'm adverse to color at all, because that's what I had to shoot most of my life, but I just don't find it as fun and rewarding as I do shooting black and white. And this is a good city for black and white. Definitely, it's got a good, a feeling, as it were.
I just came across you, Phil, because both Mark and myself are fairly new photographers. I've only been doing it for just over 4 years, and I think Mark's similar. So I've only ever seen your black and white work, but doing a little bit of research and getting to know and looking into your background a little bit more, you have done color work before street. Do you still photograph in color, or you put and you said you've gone black and white so that you could go for a marketing perspective and have an image and set yourself up for that niche market? But do you still like to shoot in color, or do you just keep that separate on a private drive for yourself?
It's separate. It's not something, black and white is what I enjoy. Color was always associated with work for me, and I didn't really enjoy the work.
Yeah. And
even the color stuff that I shoot is very muted tones. It almost looks black and white with like a hint of red or something in there every now and then. So, I haven't gone full Martin Parr yet, where I'm just like blasting people with flash guns and just saturating the shit out of it. But I haven't gone there yet. But no, those were guys that I it's so weird, because those are the guys that I looked to when I was growing up. Like, it was like, I loved his stuff, people like that. Soul Lighter, some of his color work.
Yeah.
And then, but I guess like inspirations like Salgado, people like that, pure black and white guys. Yeah. How can you not like that stuff,
Yeah. No, spot on. Speaking of people who photograph in color, Alex Webb said street photography is 99% about failure. You've been photographing for many, many years. Have you...
Yeah, 99% failure. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Absolute bullshit. Yep. Look, he's being too modest. Look at him, he's being too modest. So
there been any times when you thought, I'm just going to give up photography, or have you dealt with periods where it wasn't quite working for you on the street?
I started selling cycling clothing, mate. I've done it. I've done it already.
Yeah.
I've already been there. How do I deal with it? No, I go out and take pictures for myself every day, or if I'm not teaching someone, and I take pictures that I want to do, and I get to sell them. How rare is that? Like, I came over to Australia to you guys, and I've sold prints over there of work that I took that I wanted to take.
That's
how
amazing.
Can you not enjoy that?
Yeah, of course.
So very, very lucky.
So I just want to touch on that as well, because you were saying in previous talks that it's really important for people not to follow trends as such, because especially like on Instagram and things like that, and it's really hard when you first start, because you're looking for feedback and you're looking for people to look at your work. And I guess when we hear people who we perceive have already made it and have made that grade and are in the public eye as such in our niche field, it seems very easy for people to say that. But you did come up with something, you posted something on Instagram that was, why don't you like my work, on there? And
Cunning. Cunning.
What was the story behind that?
It was basically to illustrate to people that it's got absolutely nothing to do with your work. You look at the numbers and people get so disgruntled, like nobody's liking their work, or it doesn't work like that. Instagram is a computer game. It's not like you're going to have 100 followers and all of a sudden you're going to get 20,000 likes on an image. It doesn't work like that. It feels like it's almost a tiered system. Like if you have 100 followers, it's going to show it to this many people. It's not pumping your work out there to everyone. Like I see it even with the reels now. Like the numbers on the reels are insane. Like I put up a reel when we had the Canadian smoke fire. I went up to the top of the rock, which is like a viewing spot where you can 670,000 views on a reel. And then all of a sudden what will happen is Instagram thinks that, oh, well, hang on, we should start pushing this guy's content more. And then everything starts hitting 100K. I was adding I think I added 5,000 new followers in a week. And I'm like, hang on, the content hasn't changed. I haven't all of a sudden become Salgado overnight. Right? It was like, wow, this guy got really good. It doesn't happen like that. It's like the computer game just said, oh, hang on. Yeah, this guy's got a lot of attention. Let's push him all of a sudden. And then if you have a couple of bad ones, you go, oh, well, now he's really shit. Yeah. Let's knock him down. His Salgado-esque has come out. Let's put him back down in the doldrums.
He was a one-hit wonder.
One-hit wonder, that Penman. Yeah. So
it's sort of out of control a bit.
Just trying to figure out what that hit was, but
you've got plenty. You've got plenty, Phil. Trust me, you've got plenty.
Thank you.
But they do. But Instagram, people don't realise it. Even for someone like yourself, they play you too. Like you've just, oh God, that sounded bad. We were just talking about one hit wonder, and I said you too. Not that they've done one, you too. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But even you get hit by that. You get hit by them moving the goalposts time and time again. You know what I mean?
It's nuts. It's like, I'll give you an example. Yes, the new app Threads, right? Mm-hmm. You got your followers transition over, right? So I went to bed yesterday, so it was 6.2 thousand followers. Okay, you wake up, it's 13,000. It's like, hang on, I didn't do anything. I didn't post any work, right? And all of a sudden, overnight, I've added 6,000 new people. And I'm like, what did I do that I'm not aware of?
Sleep
and
posting.
I'll look at other people. Yeah, sleep posting's the killer. It's the technique of the future. Through AI. Sleep. Your brain is at your most creative when you're asleep.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll monitor other people's pages, and I'll see I'm trying to monitor how the algorithm's treating things. So I wanted to see, has everyone else just added 6,000 people overnight? And no. And it was just like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. So don't get disgruntled about it. If your work is not getting, the views that you want to get. I found the biggest thing for me was, I need to diversify a good website. And then basically you're using all the social media apps to draw people back to your website. Because say you're one of those unlucky people that's built their whole platform around TikTok. When TikTok goes down, right, or they get banned, what are you going to do? You're screwed.
Yeah.
So you have to start, every morning I have this routine where I'm posting to 8 different apps, so that if one goes down, all right, I've still got a following in 7 others.
Yeah.
Or if something new comes along, and you just have to keep thinking like that.
But do you use those? But you're saying use those apps to pump to market your own website. So that's your nucleus as such. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your home base, right? It's your website. That's where you get to show the work that you want to show. So you're always trying to draw people back to show them the work that you want to show, rather than the stuff that's going to get Instagram likes. And you see it on Instagram. You got to remember, you're looking at a phone, right?
Yeah.
You don't walk into MoMA or the Met and look at phones.
No.
You're looking at huge prints. So how are you going to get across to somebody on a tiny phone screen this intricate Jackson Pollock painting, right? So people they draw to the same thing, and we see it. It's like the abstract street stuff, black silhouettes, that kind of stuff. That's the stuff. Whereas the street stuff might get ignored, or that one that you're really portraits get ignored altogether. People hate portraits for some reason.
Yeah,
I have no idea why, but you put a portrait up, it's like death tone.
Yeah. And
I think that's really good advice for people out there, though, Phil. That's really handy for people to know who are just starting out. Not marketing
PayPal, $10.
I think so too. I mean, it's sort of social media seems
$10 PayPal. Yeah.
Things seem to have turned a bit of a corner on social media. I don't know. I just you sort of get that feeling, and yes, it is important, and you can't ignore it. But maybe just the message is just go out and shoot, and don't even worry about it. Just have as you say, put all your images on your website, work on some personal projects, and don't, Instagram's, Threads is always going to be there, but don't put any worth into that.
Don't think it's just a channel to get your work out there. It's just a tool. It's not, you don't, die by people's word on it,
No.
People, I always put up which one do you like and why? Like I'll put up a series of 10 images because you always get people I hear it with the workshops. You'll get different instructors. They'll just totally just kill somebody, on their work. And I have to say, look, you got to remember that's just their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know of people that have done photography that quit photography because of some advice that a workshop instructor gave them. And they belittled them so much that they just quit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have to remember it's just their opinion. There's good work. And then, you look at the stuff that's popular on Instagram, it's not the same stuff that's popular in the museums.
No.
It's not. Yeah.
All right. So, my huge learning curve was recently with the Library of Congress. So I had to submit a whole bunch of work to them for approval to get my stuff in there. And I put in all this work that I knew was popular on social media, and not one of those images were taken. It was like, no, we want the other work, the stuff that you like shooting, like the stuff that's documenting the streets, the historical stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was fascinating that, all right, that's what they think. And that's where I want my work to be, is in there. Like I want it in the museums, and so it lives on. And if I'm just going out and shooting the same kind of picture all the time, I'm never going to get that.
And how did that opportunity come about, Phil, for you to get your work into that prestigious area?
That was through the work during COVID, because you can't. It's not like you can't just apply to get in Library of Congress, because obviously, that's the greatest honor for me. Is like all of a sudden your work is with Walker Evans and Dorothea Lange, and it's like you pass and your work's going to live on. So that's by far my greatest achievement.
No, what an honor! Congratulations, that's amazing.
Huge achievement, Phil. Well done, mate. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And speaking of other historic events, I don't want to be a downer, but I did want to ask you about your 9/11 work. So, I know you're on the scene that day. What are your recollections of that day?
Well, it's it took me years before I could even talk about it, because kind of a mess. And actually, it's weird the way that my catalog is set up on my archive and Capture One. Those are the first images that come up every time. So it was. I found it very handy to talk about it, and seeing the pictures over and over and over. It just that mentally really helped. But yeah, on the day, it's. I don't know how you can't really describe. It's very hard unless you were there.
Yeah.
For those viewers that don't, know about my work, basically, I was down there probably about 20 minutes before the building came down, and I had you can go check out the work online, but I was photographing the building with a 28-70 1 block away from where the building literally came down in front of me, before I rushed into a music store that was behind. I was in there completely, the windows were completely blacked out. You couldn't see outside. And then as soon as we could see some visibility, I came out, and the area that I was in was the only area that anyone that survived, all those, the people that kind of look almost like ghosts coming towards you, was where I was. So there was a lot of those images were picked up by the museums, and they were, shown around the world in the papers. Actually, I became very friendly with a lot of the people that I photographed. Like, I've connected with those people many years on. I still stay in touch with some. Some of them have since passed. George, Slay, Joseph passed. But I still stay in touch with many of the others. I actually photographed JoJo's wedding. Like, we met about 15 years later. She was one of the women that I photographed on the day. But I photographed her wedding 18 years after that, dread day. And, it's by far the biggest photographic event that I will ever do. I know that. And it's almost like how are you ever going to surpass that?
Yeah.
from a photography standpoint, like a historical, and God forbid, I hope that nothing ever does surpass it.
Yeah.
And
that was an interesting thing, Phil, when I saw your images come up at the Leica event in Sydney. I knew those images. I'd seen those images. I just didn't realize you had taken them. Do you know what I mean? I'd seen them in the press. I'd seen them online. And like you said, just witnessing it on television was horrific enough to see what was happening. But to be on ground zero and actually experiencing it for yourself must have been hugely traumatic. But at the same time, you still had, how did you get yourself out of that? Because, people panic. People don't realize when something happens, they go to shit. Do you know what I mean? They don't have the capacity. How did you go about taking yourself out of that horrific moment and being able to capture those images?
I don't think I wasn't even there.
Right.
You kind of wandered off to another place at that point. I know that I had that moment where I was like, well, can I take these pictures? When you see these people walking towards you, can I take these pictures? I definitely had that, I remember. And I was like, well, obviously I'm here for a reason. This is, what I have to do. But it's still so surreal when you think about how big those buildings were, and that it came down literally one block in front of you. If it had come down, I don't know if you saw about like the crane accident that just happened. That was one block from my building in New York.
Right.
If you see this, but it's like, even watching that, the crane accident that just happened, and then you think, well, hang on, that was just a crane. But literally, 2 enormous buildings came down right in front of you. If it had come down any other way, we'd all be dead. If I'd stayed down there any longer than I did, I'd probably be having pretty horrific health issues as well. I was walking around not wearing a mask because I'm completely oblivious to the fact that, you're young, right? You're not thinking about it. You're just, I've got a camera and it's, this is all very, a lot's going on around you. And it was probably a good hour before someone passed me a mask. And it's like, no, there's toxic shit in the air. You need to put something on your mouth. So,
asbestos and everything, wasn't it? It was like weird stuff.
Yeah.
All this stuff that was in there.
Yeah, you just didn't think about it. I think if I'd been, maybe 10, 20 years older, I'd probably been like, nah, shit, I need to get out of it. Yeah. Like, this is not good.
Yeah, absolutely. And have any of those images landed up in galleries as well in the archive that you were touching on earlier?
Not for Library of Congress, but they're part of the 9/11 Museum permanent archives so they're there. Which it's nice to know that, again, those can be studied and school kids can see them and learn from it, because there's a whole, you think about it, there's a whole generation of people that weren't even born when it happened.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
but it is important to document it, though, Phil. And I know as street photographers, I spoke about on my recent talk, just my little talk, that we would talk about photographing homeless people and our moral compass about not photographing people in their worst light and people who are down and out or disadvantaged or whatever, and making them look bad. But that sort of comes into your mind as well when you see these people. They're at their worst moment. They're at the lowest ebb. You know what I mean? But you still have to have it. You still have to look past that, because that's not just about taking advantage of someone. It's documenting a tragedy that happened.
Well, it's like even with the homeless thing, right? It's, imagine if it was completely ignored, and people didn't even know it happened. Yeah. Like, go fast forward 50 years, and it was like, you look at the pictures now. We look at some of the great photographers, and you see like Depression era stuff, the farm administration stuff. Imagine if those pictures hadn't been taken.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you even know it even happened?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
So there's a way in which you could do it. It's like, I'm not going to go and take. It's not like you don't want to be taking cheap shots at people, right? There's a way that you can dignify people.
Yeah.
Which I think that they did do, but like taking a picture of someone sleeping in a doorway, or is there really anything to that?
No.
And And that was my argument, Phil, when I was discussing it with somebody. Like, we can't pretend like they don't exist, because they do. But we have to do it in a moralistic type way.
It's a bad intention, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even worse if you ignored that they didn't even exist.
Exactly.
I know. It's really hard. Yeah.
Well, it's tough. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world with, like, the censorship on the streets and what pictures you can take of who. It's a weird place right now, because we're bordering on this, like, full on censorship.
Oh, totally. No, they don't want you to see any of that, because it ruins the narrative that everything's just fine. Everybody's just chippity chop. Everyone's doing well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not doing well. But Phil, I just want to touch on, because I saw when I was doing a bit of homework on you that you took a photo of a colored gentleman who was homeless, and you did his portrait. You'd seen him out on the street a lot, and he scared the shit out of you. And
Styles, the mayor of Ninth Avenue. He's because he would never move. He just sits there all day, and he's a big dude, and I just see him all the time. And I was just like, it's one of those people who's just like, then you hear him speak, and it's the polar opposite of what you think. He's got a good haircut right now. Actually, someone took care of him.
Oh,
so
that's nice.
But yeah, no, I see him all the time. I say hi. There's a whole bunch around here that kind of know who I am at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know a lot of them, because when I was out on the street doing the paparazzi work, you'd be on stakeouts and it'd be the same people, and you just get chatting to each other.
Yeah. I used to talk to the homeless dudes when I'm out shooting, because often they're so aware of their surroundings. They know everything that's coming and going miles before you do. They're totally switched on. They see you coming a mile away. Yeah, and so they would watch you and then see you, and they would suss you out over time, and then they would start to have conversations with you. And often I'd be the only person they'd speak to all day. Did you find that as well? And it's amazing. Your perception is, you think they're all junkies, they're all plonkers, they're drop kicks. It's just circumstance. Anybody could find themselves in that position, judging by my experience talking to people on the street. They're not some massively educated people,
Oh yeah. I get better conversation.
No, you do.
Definitely.
You do.
It's like, and there's no agenda either. Like, they don't want something from you. You're just having a conversation. Like, I've got buddy Jeremy that I walk around, see him all the time. The only sad thing is when you start watching people deteriorate.
Yeah. It is horrendous.
I've known a few for a few years now, and you slowly watch them deteriorate.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad. I'll get strange looks from people, because I'll walk around with them, like Fifth Avenue, and then all of a sudden, one of the people might start like shouting a bit loud, and then all of a sudden the police start taking notice and like, well, hang on, who are you with him? Other people start looking at you as like, what?
They're just people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some of them have issues, but they're just people.
No, totally.
And they're not PC. They just tell you exactly what they're thinking, and it's actually refreshing sometimes in a crazy way.
The police actually use a lot of them as like informants as well. Like I've been there with guys. I wrote one in the first book. There was a guy, and we were on Fifth Avenue, and all of a sudden the cop comes over, and he's like, this guy, he's the sharpest guy on the street. He knows everything that's going on. And the guy that I'm with, he goes to the cop, well, what happened about the bomb threat in the Disney store earlier? And he was like, how could you possibly know about that? We did plain clothed. It didn't go out. It didn't go out on the wire. Nothing. He said, "There's no way you knew about that." And he just knew, just from sat there watching what was going on. He knew that there was a bomb threat.
Amazing. Well, you just touched on your book there. Can we talk about your new book, New York Street Diaries? I know that's coming out in a month or two. Is that right?
Yeah. That kind of came out of the blue. There's a publisher called Tenoyas that did one of my favorite books, Personal Best, Elliot Erwitt. And they did about I think they've done about 17 books with him, Maple Thorpe, and all these Rankin, all these guys, and love the book. So I wrote them a cold email, basically put a deck together and said, at some point I would love to do a book with you guys. And you were just like, well, okay, well, that's going to fall on deaf ears. And then 2 days later, yep, we'd love to do a book with you. And I'm like, shit, I've actually got to do it now. I didn't expect you to email me back.
Oh, wow.
So it was just like, yeah, basically, I worked with a curator in London called Lou Proud, and then a designer that I work with called Anya, who's the letterist, and she put together, all the graphics and the fonts and everything. And yeah, very, very proud of how this one's come out. It's like the last 3 years of New York Street during COVID as well, and like coming through that a lot, like snowstorm stuff that I've done as well. Very different from the first book,
and
a little bit grittier, edgier.
And it's called New York Street Diaries. Is there accompanying text, or is it all photos, or?
There's some text, but it's mostly photos and then like date stamps, so you can put it together yourself.
Magnificent. And when's that come out?
I think it's already out in Germany right now. Like parts of Europe, it's out, but for the US, UK, I think it's because the publisher's German.
Okay.
But for like most people, it'll be like September, October.
Awesome.
So what made you choose a German publisher and not like, because we've spoken to Melissa O'Shaughnessy and also
Nina,
the other one
Welsh Kling.
who contacted and they actually initially had deals to publish with overseas people, but actually went with publishers within New York. What made you decide to go with the German people?
Elliot Irwitt, clearly.
These guys, well, these guys are one of the best. Like it's kind of like them and Taschen, it's like,
yeah,
they're a big one. They're a big one. And it was, like I said, it was just a cold email, and they've been around since like 1939. They've been around a long time. They have published all the greats, and I was like, right, well, if it's good enough for Elliot Irwitt,
it's good enough. Yeah.
Good enough for me. And yeah.
So obviously Elliot Irwitt, touched you and influenced you. Is there any other photographers that you look towards and have influenced your style, your street style over the years, Phil?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a street style, but it's a mix of many different genres. I don't like to label or just get caught up in one thing, because then you just stop learning if you're just doing the same thing all the time. Yeah. So like recently is like the works of Alexei Tidorenko. Love his stuff, like the City of Shadows stuff.
Amazing.
I've been trying to try to figure out ways that I could bring that into some of my work. You don't want it to become a copy of something. So I'm working on that, like figuring out, right, there's certain things there that I like. Irwitt for his kind of wit and humor. Arnold Newman for his just like beautiful portraiture. There's no nonsense, no gimmicks, just great portraiture stuff. Salgado, obviously. Gordon Parks, Ruth Hawkin. A lot of the older stuff, to be honest, because I'm more into like the images that I want to create. I want to create images that are timeless.
Yeah.
Where you can look at it, you don't know when it was taken.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that I really enjoy doing. So I kind of gravitate to them. Some like Bruce Davidson's work. Early days was like Martin Parr. All from all over the place. Dwayne Michaels for his storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's really good advice, though, Phil. When you everybody gets influenced. You listen to the Beatles, and they were influenced by other people when they were creating their great work. But they didn't copy it.
No,
they were just influenced by other people, and they introduced particular things to it. And I guess that's a perfect example, because those photographers that you've mentioned are vastly different in all sorts of ways. Isn't it? But you can still be influenced and be inspired by those people.
Yeah, and also don't just get caught up in photography. Like I'll just go and I have passes to the Met and the MoMA museums in New York, and I'll just go in there like every couple of weeks and just see what new work's up. Take a walk around, and it might not necessarily be photography. It's mostly artwork. To be honest, I don't look at it as much photography as I do say artwork or film. Yeah. My wife's in film and television, so we watch film a lot. I'll take stuff from that. like shots, and you go, wow, you know.
Yeah.
So you take inspiration from everything.
I was going to ask, you've just mentioned all the photographers you like, but yeah, film obviously does have a quality in your work too. And are you influenced by sort of, black and white films of yesteryear and, Third Man sort of noir films and things like that? Or, do you take inspiration from places other than photography?
Yeah, everything, like some of the shot creation by Roger Deakins, you look at his stuff and you're just like, wow.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, just like incredible cinematography.
Yeah.
So take inspiration from everything.
Deakins, yeah. Sicario, just amazing work on that. I watch that all the time. It's so good.
That's the sequence on the back of the Jeeps when then they're going into Juarez.
Oh my God, I love that so much. I love that.
All the Skyfall. There's so much stuff. Good one for The Man Who Wasn't There. There's what's his name, Billy Bob
Thornton,
and Gandolfini. It's all black and white. For those of you out there, that's worth watching. I've said before, Gomorrah, hands down, that's my favorite.
Good movie, yeah.
The series.
Oh, the
5
series.
seasons.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh my God, that's the good stuff.
Have we all seen Oppenheimer? Sorry, this is turning into a movie podcast, but
not yet.
I haven't seen it either.
It's really good.
Really
good.
Okay, all right.
Well, there you go.
Another one to watch. Yeah.
Add that to your bucket list, Phil. When you're not cycling around taking goddamn photos of everything, if you've got time. So, Phil, you seem to jet set around the world everywhere. Every time I was trying to get you, were like in some other country somewhere doing something. Is there a particular, like you said you love shooting in New York?
Private jet, mate. That's how it's like a shooter's role. Private jet everywhere.
Well, Mark and I, next time you come to Aussie, you'll have to definitely take us out for a spin in it.
I'll let you take a picture of the plane.
Oh, wow. Awesome. He's so kind. He's so generous, this dude. Phil, thank you.
That's what they say about us English people. Yeah.
Oh, no, they don't.
Generous to a T, yeah.
So Phil, you travel the world. You take workshops. You photograph around the world. You're doing work all of the time. Is there? You live in New York. It's one of the best places for the type of photography that you're doing and street in general. But is there another city that that maybe you've been to that you weren't expecting to be great, but it just blew your socks off you?
I think he's going to say Melbourne.
I did actually really, really enjoy Melbourne. I had a good experience there. That's a good city. Both, yeah.
Where do you prefer though, Sydney or Melbourne, Phil? Be careful. Be careful.
10-foot barge pole, mate. Not touching that. Believe it or not, a place called Srinagar in Kashmir.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I went there back in 2004. That blew me away. I did two days driving a Jeep through Kashmir just before shit really kicked off. That was interesting. Going to Tokyo later this year, that's one on the bucket list. And believe it or not, I really wanted to go to Moscow. I was supposed to be doing a show there. And then of course, that didn't happen. Yeah. And that'll be a long time before we can go there. But that was a place I really wanted to go as well. So, but there's so many great places to visit, right? Just got to tackle them one by one.
Yeah, well,
in my jet.
I'll serve the drinks on your jet, Phil. I'm happy to do that. It's not below me.
As long as there's a runway strip big enough, yeah.
Well, Phil, we're coming out to our allotted time. We've had an absolute pleasure talking to you. We really thank you for having a chat to us on the podcast. And I guess we've kind of already touched on this. We always ask the same question to finish off the podcast, which is, which city would you go and shoot if you can go anywhere in the world tomorrow, and why? But
Newcastle. Newcastle, hands down.
There we go. Newcastle upon Tyne. There we go.
It is a nice.
There you go.
It is a nice city. Thank you, Phil. You just redeemed yourself after saying Melbourne over Sydney. So I'll accept that. Yeah, okay.
You're going to have to translate that again. Sorry, Mark.
This is a podcast. We can't put subtitles on anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get AI to re-record it for me.
Yeah.
Oh, Newcastle.
Yeah.
Is that Newcastle in New South Wales or Newcastle in the northeast of England, Phil?
I said Newcastle
There's only
upon
one,
Tyne.
mate.
Yeah.
No, there's two.
Upon Tyne.
Yeah, upon time. Good on you. Way aye, man. How are we the lads?
Phil, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been awesome, Phil. Thanks so much for taking the time, and thanks for not saying no at the Leica event when I approached you. Hi, Phil. Would you talk to us on the podcast?
Get this guy away.
We're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. No worries.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Phil.
Of course. Stay well, guys.